we are the same. The same things are happening in both places.
Same culture.
And we continue to do it because, well, like if you read Louis Armstrong's book on his life, Louis Armstrong talks about the beauty of Jamaica ginger. He was wanting Jamaica ginger right there in Louisiana. And our men, when we had the farm work program,
yes.
Our men would stop in New Orleans to be kind of seasoned before they were sent all about the place. So we were there mixing up with these people for the longest while, you know. And it's a continuation. And there was a time when we saw ourselves as the same, you know, because the schools that our intellectual people were going to were like Hampton. Things that they could afford to go to the U.S. Only the brightest of the bright would get the scholarship to go to England. So the intellectual relationship with African America was there for a very long time.
And Howard University too was another.
Where all our dentists were.
Yes. So it was, in fact, Howard was a meeting place of Africa, the Caribbean, and Black America.
Right.
Yes. Now, as a historical sociologist, I know you have studied a lot of records and so haven't you examined some of the records of Louisiana, St. Mary, to see the traffic, the movement of people coming from the U.S. to Jamaica?
Well, I've been fortunate in that some of the work I was doing, which was looking at slave records, and looking at the slave records for my own village, Woodside, led me to looking at the slave records for a village near to me, which is Palmetto Grove. And on Palmetto Grove Estate in 1817, that slave list had about 200 slaves on it, and about 45 of those 200 people were born in America.
So how did they come to Jamaica?
They came to Jamaica. It took me a very, very long time, but I could write up with the process by which I came.
Yes, this is interesting.
The thing is that there was this gentleman who was the last loyalist governor of Georgia, and his name was Wright. And he had property in Jamaica. We seem to forget too that America was 13 colonies, and Jamaica was a big deal. And there was a lot of movement between, because we were both colonies. A lot of movement between people married between, people were served in assemblies in between. There's a lot of movement between. So the governor had bought land in St. Mary, near to Louisiana. So he brought his slaves after 1782, when he was driven out, or drove himself out after the independence war. And that is how come they're there from 1782. Okay. And that whole area, Louisiana is near to Palmetto Grove. That whole area, Woodside, Louisiana, that whole area was very much influenced by the Black Baptists, whom, as you know, were African Americans who came over around about 1782. You know, after the independence war, they came over, and it is they who brought the religion mostly to the enslaved people in Jamaica. So the connections there, as I go back, the connections really are marvelous. And if you look in something like the records which deal with runaway slaves, there are a lot of people born in Georgia, born in South Carolina, who are running away. I don't know where they run away, expect to run away to. But of course, you know, there were boats here which was going between here and Cuba and Haiti. They could have run away. So
you mean when they came to Jamaica, now they tried to run away still?
They tried to run away. Quite a number of runaway slaves were African Americans. I said I didn't know where they ran away to, but I was saying that it's another thing we have to look at. Cuba and Haiti were there. They could run away to.
And by then Haiti was
free.
Yes, so and you think of the role of Bookman from Jamaica in the Haitian Revolution. So, you know,
you had, as Clinton Hutton was telling us the other day, the person who preached at the temple of our national hero in Port Moran, in Bogle, was an African American who came with the message. So we've been together in these ways for a good long time. And the records show it.
Yes, and if you come back to ska, for example, talk a little, because I know you know about this, about how African American music impacted on our mentor and helped to create with jazz and R&B to create ska.
The Holly Golly, for instance,
Yes.
which came before ska. The Holly Golly was playing African American. The Holly Golly. I can't do it now because
You can't get with
makes
man.
much noise. You stamp down, son jump, you
Yeah.
stamp and jump, and
Yeah.
that is Rasta dance. Stamp and jump, stamp and jump.
Like Nabingi?
Yes, okay. That was the Holly Golly.
Okay. Okay. So it seems to me that if we use even... Go ahead.
And even the music. Rita and them admit that they spent a lot of time listening to the impressions and listening to the those girls with them beautiful wig there.
Diana
Ross and the
Supremes.
Supremes. Listening to all of them. So they were learning from these American singers.
It seems that then if we were now to widen this conversation a bit and say, not just looking at reggae, but cultural connections, because after all, it's Black History Month. We're supposed to be celebrating, and I tend to be a little ambivalent about Black History Month. So we're too full of fashion, everything from foreign we take. But really and truly, if I think about your model now of trying to establish cultural continuities, we should be doing Black History Month all through the year, looking at what it is that we have in common with Africans across the diaspora.
We should be doing that across the diaspora, and not to leave out, which we have left out, and I don't know about it, Latin America.
Yes, Brazil.
Brazil.
Yes.
Okay. But fortunately, I was invited to do what they call the Drake lectures at this place in Vanderbilt.
Yes.
And there is a set of people working in Vanderbilt on these things. I'm so glad to be dropped into this place.
Yes.
Working on this, working on Panama and Caribbean, working on Latin America, and somebody like that Schomburg in Puerto Rico and the blacks in Puerto Rico. I mean, I know you're doing a lot of work, and but I think you have to go a little further with the business of seeing the continent of black consciousness and seeing the activities within the continent of black consciousness in terms of art, music, everything, the dance. Okay.
You see, this is one of the problems with the university. You end up being locked into little departments. Somebody doing literature here, somebody doing history, somebody doing politics, somebody else doing sociology. And I think somebody like you represents the future of the university, because you're trained as a historical sociologist, you're a creative writer, you're interested in music, You don't want to go back to Europe as our model, the Renaissance woman, but maybe it's the continent of consciousness woman that you are. It's a consciousness woman where
political interests
yes.
continue to be pulling the two people.
Yes.
Our awareness of each other.
And you have a global perspective.
Let me tell you a sad thing. In my village, we have something called an Educo tourism product. Educo because it's focused
Educational.
on education. And students come in to do their rural placement, to learn about rural Jamaica. They're usually white students. And I'm sorry to say that when the black students come in, they don't get the kind of welcome that the white students get. And it's
Why is this though?
one of the reasons is this. I don't know if the black students aren't made aware of what they're coming to, because they will come and say things like, we don't want to have seen the face of fish.
The black students?
The white students...
these are black Americans.
Black Americans.
Okay, all right.
They want to see the face of
Fish, yes.
Well,
I sympathize with them, I once took some fish to some friends of mine, Caribbean people in the US, and the little son said, fish with face. You never see a fish with a face. This is a problem. So we can sympathize with them somewhat because they're not accustomed to seeing the fish head.
If you're come to learn, the white students don't know fish head either.
Yeah, but these are the people who end up in the top of Mount Kilimanjaro, those places, they tend to be adventurous. Black people, we can't even swim, so we're not jumping into no deep water.
We have to do a little bit more.
But sorry, go ahead though.
We have to do a little bit more, right? So the kind of resistance, and the people who keep them, therefore, are much more willing to have white students. Because white students
more flexible.
Are flexible. They will do whatever you say. They will help you with the African American students. And they on the other hand complain that when they come here, the white students believe that because they're black they know everything. So they lean on them, and they can't get a chance to really learn. Which is why at one stage we had thought an African American colleague of mine, we had thought of having a thing where we just had black students come and I talked to my African American friends who say it's very difficult to teach native knowledge to black Americans and whites in the same class.
Because of the racial dynamics.
The racial dynamics. And when you teach, for instance, Yoruba philosophy, the black students are embarrassed.
Embarrassed about what?
About the supernatural and about things like that we have in our culture. The white students are just
interested,
asking questions.
Yeah, but you see, I think isn't it part of the way in which they have been socialized to think of black culture is inferior?
That we have done and that we need to do some more work on. And I said we need to do the work, not just in terms of Jamaica or the Caribbean. We need to do it in terms of the continent of black consciousness.
Well, Dr. Brodber, it was a pleasure talking with you. Reggae as Black Space carried us much wider into a vast continent of ideas. And really, I look forward to your next book and your continued production of work that challenges us.
And I know you mean that. You're one of the few people who said what she means. I know you will push ahead. And before long, I know that we will be seeing the continent of black consciousness as your as a focus on which you are going to be working.
Well, already, I teach a course called African Diaspora Women Writers, where I look at two African writers, Titi Dangaremga and Ama-Ata Edu. Then I go to North America, I look at Toni Morrison, Paul Marshall, and for the Caribbean, I do Jamaica Kincaid and one Erna Brodber. And one of the interesting issues in that course is looking at these cultural contradictions, looking at the commonalities, and what we have in what we share. And a novel like Praise Song for the Widow by Paul Marshall is so powerful because it shows this African American woman coming to the Caribbean to try to rediscover the youth that she had forgotten from her early childhood. Yes, her early childhood, going south to the Gullah Islands with her great aunt. So, may I do the little work? Not as big as you, but we'll go through.
I know you're doing it.
Big respect. You hear? Enough thanks.
All
right.
All right, then, good then.